Guys, welcome to Rocket Fuel. We are excited to be here. It's March, which is crazy. It seemed like January was 6 months long, and February was like a week long. We're 20, almost 20% through the year, which is nuts. Yeah. Guys, obviously the world's crazy right now, and there's a million things going on. We're not oblivious to that. We're going to control what we can control, which is we're going to be here. We're going to learn about running great businesses. We're going to learn about doing what we can to help people achieve the dream of home ownership across North America. As always, just wanted to give a shout out to our builders. We've got our builder group. You can notice like Philip Kang's got his background on there. We've got some really cool stuff coming with them. We're going to be doing some local events, some virtual events. So keep your eyes out for those announcements. Interest rates, as you guys know, in the States are low. We mentioned it last week, to under 6 for the first time in 3 years. I know Canada's rates traditionally are a little bit lower, but it's a great time to be focused on homeowner and potential homeowner education. I know our team has ramped up quite a bit. We've done 300 transactions in the last 6 months. I think we're probably going to do 400 or 500 transactions in the next 6 months, which is going to be awesome. So it's a great day to learn. And Raquel has a couple of amazing guests today for our Rocket Fuel. So we'll go ahead and kick it over to Raquel.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for kicking us off. And just like he said, we are in a space right now in the real estate industry. If you guys have not felt it or heard it, or seen your business either go up, go down, we're at an inflection point. And so you can see there's lots of mergers happening in our industry. If you guys haven't read some of the news, some of Inman, right? Technology is accelerating. We've got AI that's reshaping some of our workflows as real estate agents, or, we're actually using AI now in our business where we didn't really use it 2 to 3 years ago, right? As much as we use it today. And the real question is the market changing? It's always going to change. There's always going to be different cycles. The real question is who is going to control their position in this next era of real estate, and how do we position our business knowing what we know, right? So we can get ahead of it. And over the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to unpack what disruption means for a solo agent, how team models are quietly pivoting or evolving in today's market, and then what's coming for brokerages and where AI really fits in your business and where it might not. And then here's the truth. When the industry hits inflection points, two things happen. Some people pull away and shrink, and some people go all in and they build. And this is what Rocket Fuel is all about. It's for those that actually want to grow and build in our industry. And in this market, you need perspective from people that are actually doing it, where decisions are being made, people who understand growth, people who understand scale, and have actually scaled real estate business. And today I want to introduce to you guys Seth Campbell. He is, if you guys have never heard of him speak, he is an expansion strategist. He's been in the industry for a really long time. I always say that he's pioneered real estate expansion. He was writing the playbook out of theory, because it was either theory or real experience. And Seth was at the forefront of all of that. And I've had him as a mentor. I've also worked alongside of him with being his VP of growth. And I say he has an extremely bright mind. Might be the only person smarter than him is his son, Daniel. And if you guys don't know Daniel, Daniel attended college. How old was he when he attended college? I just
He
like the
was
people.
15. He graduated. He got his
Wow.
AA at 16.
That's crazy, right? So he is, I mean, I met him when he was young and I was like, okay, this guy is going to be the next scientist or genius or he's going to build something, the next Elon Musk. So if you
We're
want to
just trying to get him
understand,
to remember to brush his teeth before he goes to bed still.
I will next time I see him. So if you want to understand the industry, you want to understand complexity and simplifying it and powerful structures and infrastructures in real estate. I always say Seth sees it early before most people do. And the reason why I also love Rocket Fuel, when I tell you this, that this is one of the most collaborative communities. It's open to all brands, all brokerages. And there's not a lot of communities that feature other speakers from other brands. We actually don't say it, we actually live it here at RocketFuel. And today we have Brett Sikora, who was the #1 real estate team for units sold in the US from EXP out of 80,000 plus agents. So he is in the trenches. He's actually seeing what's happening right now in the market. And I think you guys are going to get a ton of insights from both of them. And I've had the honor of knowing Brett for a really long time and also being able to work alongside of him with his leadership team. So he's built an amazing business, and I can't wait for you guys to hear from Brett and Seth. So welcome, you guys.
Thanks so much.
Get your notes out for sure, because you guys are going to be taking some notes today.
See,
And then we'll open it
hopefully
up for
Brett
questions.
says some smart things.
Whenever I see Seth's son with the college thing, I remember going to my wife like, "Look at how smart this family is. These are some pretty smart folks." Yeah, I'm just grateful to be on this Zoom with smarter folks. So that's what I'm an expert at, is getting around super smart people.
Yeah, we're excited to be here. Thank you, Raquel, Amy, Joe. And you know, we also have Jen Schiff on here. I see Jen joined us. She's like a common denominator who was worked with us in expansion with Raquel, and then also is Brett's partner in building the Align team to #1. So there is a lot of wisdom in this room, and we're excited. We're excited to be here and kind of talk about everything that's going on. And really, I think Brett and I are pretty, loose people. So we like engagement, right, Brett? Is it fair to say that?
Yep.
And this is going to be one of those topics, right? So many people have opinions. There's a lot of thoughts on this. And I think what we really wanted to do was, pull it all together and do our best to say, like, hey, there's some real stuff happening now that's different than ever has happened before in our industry and technology and everything like that, like serious things that we do need to take serious in this industry. And um, and there's opportunity inside of that. And there's practical things that we can be doing now to prepare and can be doing now to maintain or build the business that we currently have, right? So it's kind of like all those truths. I think what drives me crazy when we talk about all these rapid changes that are happening in the industry is like the two extremes. Is I hear like the agent's gone and sky is falling, and then I hear the total of like never gonna happen. Real estate can never replace an agent, and the consumer, and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, right? It's not as bad as we think, but it's also not as good as some of us think. And I think as long as we can kind of look at that, because I think what we'll do is kind of build a case to show historically what's happened before and in other industries also that we do need to take serious, right? And we can learn from the history that's happened in the United States and Canada, particularly in other industries, and really understand like, hey, what is our opportunity inside real estate? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think too, like Seth, we were chatting about this on Friday when you and I connected. One of the things about myself is I got licensed in 2007 at 21 years old. I didn't go to college. I had sold a landscaping company. This was my career. And I found myself in like that hard time. And I think that that's a lot of what we're seeing right now in today's market, where I back then didn't know any better. And then also too, with this call, not only single agents, team leaders, whatever it may be, we want to make sure that there's the appropriate action plan in place so that whether you were in the market benefiting from 2021 or a brand new agent or came in 2001, we're making sure that you move through this with clarity and try to have the least amount of distractions from all the noise that's happening within the industry and what you should be paying attention to.
100%. So I put together. I lost my share ability. Can I? So I put together a couple of slides, but don't worry, Brett and I are not huge slide people.
Can you share, Seth, or no?
Yeah, now I got it.
Okay.
So I only have like 6, and one of them is the title screen. So I think so. To kind of reinforce what we're saying is like the idea of an inflection point. I want to hit on that for a second, is because it's different than a market shift. And I think what happens is we tend to we feel like this is a market cycle, but this is a structural inflection point. And if you think about like what an inflection point is, it's something that makes permanent change. And if you look back at history, inflection points are usually not like a single event where it all happens at once. It's a slow buildup of a few things. There's some people warning about it, and things start to change, but it does take some time, and then all of a sudden, like it's gradually then suddenly, right? So if you think about like the internet was an inflection point in the history of humanity, right? Would y'all agree with that? Like the internet itself, it just changed how we all live, how we all function, everything, right? Changed everything. Um, but what was it before? It was like networked computers. There was like bulletin board system, BBS. There was FTP, and there was www, World Wide Web. Right? There was these different components of internet, and they took a while. And then one of them, the World Wide Web, like kind of exploded, and then everything else started to change. Right? Do you follow me? So think about like what we've been listening to for the last couple of years with AI and technology and disruption and our industry, and you see the ingredients of this inflection point. You see, like, oh, that actually could make a big difference, but I don't fully see it yet. Or that is kind of cool, but and I kind of use it, but not like it hasn't taken over. But you see those pieces coming together, right? So I think like the biggest overall advice, and we're going to kind of, there's a lot to it in the way I view it, and kind of like what I remember talking about this years ago. I don't know, like I think it was like 7 years ago. I sat in a room and said like, hey, like commission's gonna come under attack. Everybody was talking about Zillow, and I was like, it's gonna probably be from a lawsuit. And this is like before any lawsuit or anything like that. And like they were laughing me out of the room, like off the stage. And but you can see like patterns and trends of what's gonna happen. And you kind of take these different converging points. And the way my brain works is and we've kind of nailed it down to like, all right, there's these four pieces that are happening right now. There's the market itself, which we're all talking about and dealing with, like the real estate market. Then there's this like capital consolidation, big business, mergers, acquisitions, like component that's happening right now. And then there's this AI technology component that's also converging in at the same time. And then there's the one factor that probably controls everything ultimately, and that's the consumer, right? So when you take these four things coming together all at once, like they don't always happen like that in a lifetime. That's kind of what brings us to an inflection point. Anything you'd add to that, Brett? Brett and I did not practice, so
No, yeah, and that's the exactly what we're talking about. And then my goal here is to make sure that we're implementing things that are actually working, boots on the ground as we go through everything that's coming together right now. I was actually sitting there listening to you, Seth, going, "Oh wow, it sounds there's quite a bit happening when you put it that way." But I haven't heard it all in one sentence. I'm literally sitting there digesting it as well as we go through. But that's the you want to keep moving. I mean, that's really
Yeah.
the simplicity of it is like you can't sit and be paralyzed by ideas and movement is what creates traction.
Yeah, so let's go. Let's talk about this first one. Um, and Brett, so I might stir things up. Brett will help land the plane and calm everybody down. Um, you know, I'm not all doom and gloom, but I tend to lean towards the shake of like, hey, this is worse than you think side of things because it's a little too much optimism on some of us. But like this is what we know about, right? The market itself, right? Which this is part of a cycle. This does happen. This cycle is a little different where pretty much if I summed up the real estate cycle in the United States at least, it's like almost 7 million homes sell units a year and then almost 4 million. Like, and then we bounce between those over a period of time, 7 to 10 years or whatever it ends up being. Like that's it. 4 million, 7 million, 7 million, 4 million, 7 million, 4 million, 7 million, 4. It's almost always that. And we've been dragging across the bottom of that the last couple of years, right? And like to the extent of like January 26, 2026, this is like, a couple weeks ago, um, annualized rates were pacing at 3.91 million. So like actually lower than the 4 million. So this is like less units being sold, right? And And then you can add in another factor, which I don't have anything here about, which is even of those units, there's a percentage we know now that are being sold outside of MLS. There always has been, but that percentage itself is growing, right? There's more off market stuff. So if you think as a real estate agent, like the size of my pie has shrunk quite a bit. In the 4 million part is normal. It's terrible. It's normal. But and this is the first time it's kind of happened without a huge price drop at the same time. They usually go together, but that hasn't happened, which is somewhat fooled some of us into thinking it doesn't hurt as much, right? Because the price point hasn't followed with it.
Hey, really quick, Seth, this is Taylor and I talk about this a lot with our team and everyone else is like, we sold real estate through the recession and it sucked. Obviously, prices dropped and commission, obviously, if you're used to selling a $600,000 house and all of a sudden that house is worth four, your commission reduction. But there was like clear paths of success. You could get REOs, you could get short sales. It was like there was a clear path to success. I think the challenge that we've seen in our world is just that massive drop in unit production, like unit sales and some of this off market stuff. It's like, I think agents have had a hard time finding that clear path to success because even though commissions have stayed high, there's less of them happening by virtue of there being less transactions. And it's like that deal volume issue is not talked about a lot because we're all happy prices stayed high, but the deal volume has dropped so much. We got to find those paths to success.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like it is, it's always kind of about units, right? And the units have shrunk, and this is the strangest. So like this is the most of the four big components. Like this is the one that's most traditional in a real estate cycle, but even as a market cycle, this one's different because of what you just said. Like there isn't like the REO or the builder or the big one to many account that's necessarily succeeding. Like all of them are in a different cycle. It's just different on top of that, and it's tough, right?
Yeah, I'd
Um,
venture to say too, just looking at that, my brain, and I live in New Jersey, which is still in probably the lowest inventory market we've ever had right now. It's worse than it was last year, and it was horrible last year. But when I'm looking at like that inventory, just looking at it from the outside, and these things are not transacting, but the prices are staying high, to me, that tells me somebody's going to come in and do a 10% price reduction, and the buyers are going to take that, and then everything is going to fall. Again, I don't want to be doom and gloom, but that's what I would venture to say, and that's what I remember seeing having happened in the past too. And Joe, to answer it, if sellers need to sell, I think that it is one of those strategic pricing strategies to get out. We had a unit in Miami. There were 44 two beds on the market, all around 399. Seller had to go, so it went up at 339, and it just spit out. It was gone in one day,
yeah.
and that agent had a transaction. So again, I think it's all case by case, depends on what the sellers need to do in that scenario. But yeah, it's building in certain parts, and it's the lowest it's ever been in other parts. Actually, it's just interesting across the
Yeah,
U.S. how this is happening.
it is strange, and make no mistake, like the formula for this one is tried and true. Like the way we go back to 7 million, like of all the, I don't know, economists, you put 10 economists in a room, like there's gonna be 10 different opinions, right? And but real estate, it can truly be traced back to like one thing, the real estate market, it's affordability, right? It's the way, and affordability we measure as a percentage of the population that can afford the average home, priced home in a society. And in fact, like you can nerd out on history and like track affordability, and it actually, if it gets too high, the percentage gets too high, as too many of the citizens can buy private property, like civilizations collapse. Actually, ironically enough. So, but there's a healthy percentage, and so what is affordability? It's a real easy formula, right? It's like what are the components of affordability, really quick? Like there's the cost of the home. What else?
Cost of financing,
Yeah, that's it. Like the interest rate, cost of financing, and then like income, right? So
program requirements. Yeah.
yeah, so in like because some of you have to have income to purchase. So if income drops because unemployment skyrockets, real estate markets go down, right? If interest rates go up, affordability gets worse, real estate markets go down. Prices get too high, affordability gets worse, But so then you know the formula. If To get to 7 million, one of those three things has to change, or two out of three. Interest rates either come down, prices come down, both of them come down, or income around the world doubles. Like that's the one that moves the least, right? That's probably not going to happen.
Seth, and I've talked about this, and like again, you can't even mention the name without half of the people being excited, half the people being pissed off. But Trump has been very specific that one of his goals is to maintain housing price while making it more affordable, and the only lever he could pull or at least put pressure on is to try to get interest rates lower. And I just have found it interesting. I'm going to say transparency, and everyone's going to go, the government's never transparent about anything, but like his transparency around desiring to keep prices high while trying to get interest rates lower to increase, like you said, affordability, also increasing wages and lowering taxes. And it's just been an interesting thing to watch the administration try to move the chess pieces as best they can, which are not moving as fast as some of us would like, but it's been an interesting process.
Yeah. And it's going to be right. And lowering interest rates will help. And at the end of the day, like what did we hear Brett say? What happened in Miami? Lower the price and then units were created that fast. Like that price ultimately is probably the big three that will have it happen the fastest, right? And interest rates will definitely help. But you see like 21, record low first time home buyers. That's probably because of affordability, right? That would correlate with a market drop. Um, but I think the big point that we want to make is maybe the last two things on this slide, right, Brett, is the and this is actually very difficult to find research on, but during like right when COVID shut down, I was talking to Brett the other day about this, is like when the world shut down, like we couldn't go outside and it was illegal to like go show a house in some states, right? I remember pulling stats because we weren't sure like what was going to happen to the economy, and I found stats. It was really hard to find. It wasn't perfect data, but it was definitely correlative. Where when markets dropped like this, we got closer to that 4 million units, and real estate markets were lower. There was less real estate agents because we know a lot of agents leave the business, but the percentage of top producers actually got higher. So, like, in other words, during a normal market, like, 70% of the agents sell 30, or 30% of the agents sell 70% of the homes. During one of these tighter markets like this, like 4 million units, it's closer to 90-10. Like 80-90% of the units are sold by 10 to 20% of the agents. So, like, the rich get richer, the more successful get more successful inside of the real estate industry. So it kind of depends like what team you're on. If you're focused and you're dialed in, this you actually get the pie gets smaller, but your slice gets bigger. And then if you can install really good, and what we do know is some of the best producers come in during these markets. So like in other words, like if you started real estate in 2021, 2022, like the thing you're in now is not that, right? It's a totally different real estate market. And but if you join now or in the last year or two, like you can handle anything, right? Because you know how to do this market. So those people tend to do really well when the market goes back up to 7 million units.
Yeah, and it's funny when I came in 2007, like I had mentioned, I had met with who was one of my mentors back in the day, big Mike Ferry, OG gangster with phone prospecting. And he was saying in 2009 that he actually prays for down markets. He prays for tougher markets because it's easier to differentiate against other agents when your skill set is like as sharp as an axe. So I use that as an example when I'm thinking through that. Like, how do I become the best version of myself so that when I'm transacting with a client or my phone rings or that limited buyer pool, comes across my desk that's not available because I'm in Tampa, Florida, or whatever it may, I'm looking through the comments, for instance, I'm going to make sure that I win that I'm doing everything in my power to get in front of that client and get them into a transaction. And then two, I'm making sure that I'm focusing on the right avatar for a client too. Like on that slide, you said new home buyers, for instance, are not transacting nearly as much as they were in the past. I know a lot of agents that have 45 new home buyers that are out there, and I hate to be like the bearer of bad news, But when I talk to folks, again, we use the Tampa market as an example, the consumer that can afford 1.5 million and up is a better consumer or better buyer to have within that market. And then people then ask, okay, great. Well, how would I go about getting that consumer? That sounds great on paper. It's easier. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't coach, Will, just I don't sell coaching. I actually would say in a down market, coaching's the first expense to go away based on friends of
Yes.
Tom Ferry, everything. Coaching revenue is the first thing that people cut off in a tight market. Um, but yeah, so in regard to that, it's really going out there and it's looking at what is my avatar? What am I going to do to make sure people transact? What am I going to like foaming at the mouth to actually win? And that's the differentiator where we see, even within my own organization, 82% had a better year than they did the year prior in this down market
All
in
right,
limited or
that's huge.
yeah.
All right,
So,
so what caused that? Like, because that's against the grain.
well, I think it's one of those things where like you don't accept no for an answer. I mean, we're large. We operate in 8 states. There's a lot of things going on. I was on a listing appointment with one of my agents for $900,000 on Friday. I want to win. I want to be out there. I want to make sure that we do this. And I would look at that too as an agent, whoever you have as your broker, whoever your leader may be, if you're on a team, if you're running a team, are you truly going through everything to make sure that you completely change like the chance of a better outcome within that. And another thing that we do, for instance, too, within our organization is every single time somebody submits an offer, they have to check with leadership, including leaders. Leaders have to check with leadership in regard to an offer to make sure that they're truly putting their best foot forward. The client's doing exactly what they need to be doing to get through that. Joe, I see you popped your hand
Hey,
up.
hey, Brett, quick question. Um, in a market like we're in right now, I believe it's super important that agents bait the fish they want to catch. I ran a tech company for a while and we tried to be everything to everyone. It wasn't in the real estate space and we failed because of that. Like, how much are you focusing on going after, it seems like a tough strategy right now to go after new home buyers, where going after move up buyers and people who probably need to sell in order to buy could be a strong strategy. Like, how much are you guys trying to be a catch-all versus how much are you going, hey, in an average sales price of 550 in that market, let's go get a bunch of $700,000 or $800,000 buyers?
I would say the tougher strategy is to not have a strategy. So if you don't know what your avatar is and you don't, so to your point, like, yeah, I had one. Mine was is that the simplicity of it was it's somebody I would want to get a beer with. So then people were like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, when you get invited to a Yankees game and you have to spend 6 hours with somebody and they are like, they have great seats, but you're kind of like, I don't really want to ride the subway and go like spend the whole day with them. That's not my avatar. That's not my client. So we boiled it down to who do I want to get a beer with and that just kind of like funneled through there. It was a lot less friction within the market. But we created a perfect buyer list that was on my bathroom mirror that I would read every single morning and every single night. And we created a perfect seller list as well. I also created a perfect investment property as well because I was buying, quite a bit back then when I was 100% in the field. Um, but understanding like what is it you look for? Do they offer what is appropriate? Like putting it out to the universe to make sure that you have the right folks because like I said earlier, if you have 45 of the wrong clients, you're going to be spinning your wheels and you're not going to be clearing out your pipeline. That's the name of the game. And regardless of market, I've had somebody tell me in the past, hey, this home's listed at 700,000. You toured it with your buyers. Did they like the home? And I'd say no. And they'd be like, what did they like about it? And I'd be like, I don't know, they didn't like the kitchen, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, is it the price? And he'd say, and then I'd say, no, it's not the price. And then he'd be like, well, would they buy it for 600,000? I'm like, yeah, of course. And he goes, so it's the price. So everything always comes back to the price too. And I just want to like, talk about that. And that really is, it's like, who's in your pipeline? Who's looking to transact in the next 30 days? If the right property came up, would they buy it today? Would they offer the appropriate amount for it? If a seller is actually there, are they actually going to strategically price because they have to move for some reason? So you want to look for clients that like they live in a 2 bedroom and just had their third kid. They live in Florida and unfortunately a spouse passed away and they need to go into a home. Like there are transactions that will happen regardless of rates, regardless of market, regardless of price.
Well, and I think, Brett, there's so much wisdom in like plan for success. And then what does success mean? If you guys are running like first time homebuyer and down payment assistance seminars, And then you get clients and you're like, holy crap, these people are a lot of work and the payoff isn't that great. You literally like baited the fish you wanted to catch just to get a deal done. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, the deal economics for this freaking suck. And so it's like, it, reverse engineer success. Like, okay, cool. We sold in my market an $800,000 home to a guy that sold a $550,000 house. He had equity to use for his down payment. I created 2 transactions out of one client. Yay, that's success. Or like, okay, we partnered with a down payment assistance and a credit repair company. We worked with this guy for 6 months. We couldn't find him a house because he could only spend 350. And then when it did happen, my dollar per hour went down to like $5 because the commission sucked and it took forever. So it's like reverse engineer the success you want, knowing that for most of us, we don't have to catch the whole pie. For most agents, if they do 15 transactions a year, they're like 7 times more effective than average. And like, just make sure those 15 transactions that go through are the ones you want to do.
Yeah, and I always see folks in that world too. Like if you're an expert at credit repair and distressed buyers, it's so funny how many of them don't become experts in distressed sellers, which is also a market that, some folks have quite a bit of equity. We can, again, you go back to Tampa. There might be somebody that bought in Tampa in 1994 that has whatever. They're not paying, they're distressed. They're on the list pendants list. You can go help them on that side of things, repair their credit, help them tap out equity and, move on to a whatever it is that we need to go on to next. But yeah, there's just always deals there. And I think that's the issue is folks are going through the motion with things that worked in 2021. And the tide's been Seth, I was saying this on Friday. One of my favorite quotes is when the tide goes out, you're going to see who's swimming naked. And people have been swimming naked for 3.5 years right now. And it's one of those things like, are we going to make money? Are we going to do this? Are we going to clear out a pipeline? And I could literally talk about that one subject all day long.
Swimming
But
naked on TikTok and Instagram, actually. Like, it's
Yes.
like in 2021, it's like, dude, just create a video of yourself driving a Porsche on TikTok, and people are going to be like, hey, you must be successful. Sell my house. And then you see people do some stuff now, and you're like, wow, you just look stupid. But 4 years ago, 5 years ago, it popped. You know what I mean? And
yep.
so they're swimming naked on TikTok, which is an
Yes, that might be the quote of the Zoom right there. Swimming naked on TikTok. The you know, really really good advice. The piece I want to wrap up right there on this and the market, right, is I think we heard some wisdom from Joe and Brett that if I'm sitting in the audience, I want to capture, and it's two things is like bait the fish that you catch that you want to catch, right? And we heard Brett say something there that like it's funny. I hear really successful people and like you can ask the question like 3 or 4 times and then they just like spit something out that to them is like, oh, that's just normal. And he said he put the perfect buyer, the perfect seller, and the perfect investment property on his bathroom mirror and read it every day. And that's the kind of thing that you can hear in something like this and just be like, oh, that's cool, and then forget about it. But I promise you, like having talked to so many successful people and interviewed them over the years, like that thing right there will be what makes the difference. That will embed the baiting of the fish that you want to catch because you're going to just be obsessed. You're going to see it. You're going to activate your brain to see that person. You're going to say the right words when the right time comes. And you're literally going to sell more houses because you put some paper up on your bathroom mirror and read it every day and you chose to get specific. And sometimes during down markets, when we're at this 4 million units a year, we tend to think in scarcity of like, man, I don't want to like niche myself into like that type of person because there's not that many there. And then, you chase two, catch none. And instead of just like being very specific. So if I'm listening like that would be my big takeaway on that one is like get real specific, put it on the bathroom mirror, and don't swim naked on TikTok. Um, so that's the first one, right? Is the market, right? Now this is the one that's a little bit controversial, but whatever. We're just gonna put it out there. It's like this is real. This is the big one that's happening a lot, right? Capital consolidation. There is a phenomenon in business called winner take all, and it's happening in almost every industry, and it's just a normal function. And it's not all as in like there's only one company left, but in every major industry, there is a winner take all effect that has happened where there's a few left, right? When airlines start up, there's a whole bunch of airlines, and then there's like a few left. mergers, acquisitions, bankruptcies, one buys out the other. The same thing, like real estate is ripe for that because like we have so much, it's a very decentralized thing. There's a lot of laws and MLS and data that has slowed down winner take all, yet it's happening, right? Capital will find a way. And a whole bunch of money came from SoftBank from Japan to the United States into Compass's hands, and capital will find a way around all the rules and laws and data there is. And we just witnessed like the largest brokerage on earth and largest acquisition in history of Compass buying Anywhere. You know, it's essentially like all these brands are now under one umbrella. And in our industry, Compass put themselves out as a technology company. I think I would disagree with some pieces of that, but they position themselves that way. But it was this new version, this more modern whatever, that has bought out an entrenchment. That's what it'll go down in history as, even though like being on the inside, we know pieces of it, but still, um, really huge move. Like what this does to the industry is hard to even fathom, and we haven't fully felt it yet. But if you start to realize how much market share flows through that, what percentage of agents, what percentage of NAR membership is under one of, like, you start to realize like what could happen should they choose to go, and they're not short on cash. So I'm sure that's not the last check they're going to write for a company also, or whether it's a brokerage or a technology or an MLS or who knows. But you see that happening. And then, but before that, we had a huge one also where we had the largest lender buy the largest web real estate website that had a brokerage attached to it, Redfin, right? Rocket buying Redfin. And then the last one is we saw, Keller Williams, which is probably the strongest representative of like the traditional real estate world that stayed independent, right? Like we can do it on our own. We don't need to borrow money. We don't need to raise capital. We can grow an empire in a huge way. Wake up one day and say like we need to raise capital to compete, right? So that's kind of like you start to realize like, okay, capital is important. Like the number one proved their point, dominant company needed to go raise capital. The banking industry, and by the way, raise capital from who? Uh, a title company that owns, or an investment company that owns one of the largest data providers in the world, or holders in the world, CoreLogic and Lone Wolf Technology, like owns a lot of back end of real estate and data, right? Title coming in. And then you see the largest lender now grabbing the top of the funnel, the largest top of the funnel with billions of dollars. And then you see the largest real estate brokerage on earth in the history get consolidated together. And then just between the time of us announcing this Zoom and today, these first two boxes get into business together and strike a deal. Like Compass does a deal with Rocket Mortgage, and who bought Redfin, and you start to say like, oh my gosh, like this is consolidation. This is winner take all. It is moving towards like maybe there's only going to be a few companies, and that's not all to scare or anything like that. This happens. It's happened across the board. It's happened in so many industries, and it's not like and I'm going to stir it up a little bit of like, this is real. They will have massive control and impact over the industry. So again, inflection, this is different. This isn't just a market cycle. Things will never be the same. Whether it's, I don't know, it could be in the next 6 months, it could be in the next 3 years. I don't know, but I can tell you like things will never be the same, even just because of this slide. Now, what do we do about it? I have no idea. I'm gonna leave that to Brett. No, I'm just kidding. What do we do about it? Is we're aware, and we're not in denial. And at some point, we realize like, okay, there's many layers to our industry, right? There's brokerage, there's MLS, there's real estate agents, there's real estate teams, there's team ridges. Now there is, I would argue that there's a new team model. The Zillow Flex team model is a legitimate separate team model, different one. Um, Either way, whatever layer you play at, there's probably consolidation that needs to happen and should happen, and that you should kind of start to become okay with.
Well, and really quick, Seth, on that topic, like, guys, this is gut check time. Do you own your business? Like, we've got Brett here from EXP. A lot of us are at Real. Some of you guys are all over the place. But the question is, like, are you renting even your brokerage relationship? Like, do you have any equity stake or share of revenue in your real estate business? Because people like Compass are making huge moves, ownership making huge moves. And the question you have to ask yourself is like, do I own any part of my business at all? So just small question there.
It and this one's tough, right? Because we want to ignore it. But you can no longer ignore this. Like, I don't know, like what's the next one will be the one that wakes everybody up. I don't know if the last one didn't, or last Friday's doesn't. It will, and it's not scary. Just look for the opportunity. For goodness sake, like one of the challenges in this industry, and I think we've gotten better at it, is and the market shift loosens it a little bit. But sometimes we get a little bit of ego in our industry and attachment to our own brand, and we think it's bigger than it really is, and we don't want to like merge, or we don't want to become part of something bigger. And then at some level, we start to realize like, okay, maybe it makes sense. I'm telling you, like, I wouldn't be aiming for the island of my own anymore if I woke up today in real estate. Like, I would not be the one saying like, I would be aiming for like, okay, there is some safety in numbers. There is, and I don't say that as a defensive. I say that as a there's opportunity, right? There's control here, right? And opportunity that these companies will be able to create, or companies like, and this can happen at the agent level. This can happen in your brokerage, but start to think about like formal, informal partnering up, syndicates working together. Be careful with that stuff, but just open the idea to like, we can do more stuff together.
Yeah, and that's I guess Seth, I originally came into your world with Raquel back in 2017 or so when I was a struggling team leader around like 25 million. I remember I wasn't big enough to actually get into Five Doors Network in production. And then I would ask like in the chat, like some people throw out some like lofty goals. Like, what are you guys looking to do within the world of real estate? Like what does 2026 look like for you for units or recruited or volume and all of that? And the reason why I bring that up, because when I was on that journey, I asked everybody. I asked Sue Adler at Keller Williams. I asked Raquel. I asked, actually, I think I asked Raquel. I don't know if I asked Raquel. I definitely asked David DeVoe, who's at Keller Williams at the time as well. And there was one other as well that I was interviewing with. And I said, listen, I will net $1 million a year while not being in production. What do you have that will help me get there quicker? And I would say anybody that's putting their goals in the chat right now, like last 2 years, personally done 38 million each year. I want to hit 100 million. Cool. Is where you're at, or is who you're around right now, or is whatever coaching, platform, proximity, whatever it may be, is that going to show you how to get to 100 million with less mistakes and less time while remaining more profitable? To me, that's the only question that should really matter when evaluating your current brokerage, whether you're an independent, whether you're working for Compass, anywhere, whatever it may be. The agent that wants to grow needs to know if the person that's around them, the person that they're bouncing ideas off, can actually get them with data, like actually show them how to get there in less time. And I think that that's the biggest piece of this puzzle. And my brain automatically, not automatically, non-automatically, doesn't go to doom and gloom. So while you were talking about that, Seth, while I'm thinking about this, I'm trying to say to myself, well, what if Compass privatizes every MLS? What if they take 44% of market? What if Redfin does this? And I think the mindset, and this is where everybody needs, is I can't even create anxiety in my body around that. Like, it's just not even a concern. So like let's say that does happen. cool. Just going to pivot. I'm going to rock a different way. I'm going to do this. My marketing is going to be against why you should be on the market, right? You're going to start telling different stories and you're going to present differently. And it's a skill set issue when you're in front of those buyers, in front of those sellers. And when I was a brand new agent, I knew how to position myself on a listing appointment to compete against the super mega agent in my world so that I could be a big, really express a differentiator that the consumer understood. And then when I'm a super big agent, I understand how to express, differentiators that, again, the consumer understands. I think that a lot of folks don't listen to the consumer, and that's like the biggest problem here. And they don't actually change the way that they're presenting based on the way that the consumer's receiving the information that's coming out of their mouth. So a lot of times we just burn through a listing presentation or we burn through it and we're going through the motions. And to go back to the first slide that we're on, that is the biggest differentiator. It's the ones that are looking at all of this, that are consuming the information, and then making decisions that create more transactions and a better experience for the consumer.
Yeah, 100%. And I want to leave on doom and gloom, and I want to move fast because we're getting short on time. But
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a
yeah,
question, Seth?
Yeah.
Are we as independent realtors, even though we belong to Real, my wife and I are on a team, or actually a group, are we going to be at a disadvantage if the listings are going to be privatized like these people are doing, like the group of Compass and the associates around them? Because they're going to have their own private listings. Are we going to have access, and how we're going to be treated fairly in the commission? I mean, in the compensation, I would say.
that's
How
that's
does
a
that work, and who regulates all this? I know NAR has got something to do with it. This is a big mega junction they did, tremendous power.
yeah. I don't know that NAR is going to help. But let's am I allowed to say that out loud? Did I just say that out loud, or did I say that to
You're
my?
lawless, Seth. You can do
Okay,
whatever
yeah.
you want. I don't think I can
I
say
fly
We
no
didn't hear
flag
that,
right now,
Seth.
so I can say whatever I
We didn't
want.
say that,
Uh,
Seth.
let me answer that on the fourth on 2 slides from now. Like I'm going to
Okay,
pull
go
that
ahead.
together.
Sorry.
Because I think that's the ultimate answer, right? Where we try to answer some of this. So this one I won't spend too much time on because this is probably all you've listened to for the last 6 to 9 months. Is like modern technology, AI. AI is invasive. I'll sum this up because I'm deep into this world. Deep into this world. Um, the most drastic form of realizing what's happening is very soon how we do all work will change. Like it's that dramatic. In other words, anything that you do on a screen is probably going to change very soon. And that top right box is the scary one. 60%, 80% of tasks will probably be able to, that real estate agents do will be able to be automated. That agents is real estate agents, not AI agents. And we're already starting to see some of that. So then you think like, okay, well, that's cool. Does that put me out of business? It could, or it puts you in front of it, right? Because then if you have a machine that does 68% of your tasks, then you should be able to do 68% more clients, right? And consolidation can happen as an individual. Like as an individual now, like it's already happened in the world of coding. Like we have one engineer that can do now the code work of 3 or 4, like right now. Like we should have one real estate agent that could do the work of 3 or 4 real estate agents. That will happen very shortly. So just be the one, right? And start to consolidate and be part of groups and teams and organizations that are helping you get in front of that. Don't ignore it, right? Like that's the shortcut here. It's hard to predict how much will change other than to say like almost all of it, but just be in front of it. You should be able to do way more transactions in way less minutes on way less cost. Just be the one doing it. Don't be the one ignoring it.
Yeah, robots aren't scary. Just be the one that has 200 Tesla robots flying around in Waymo selling homes with people with Oculus.
Yeah.
Where we're
Yeah.
going.
Just be the one controlling the robots.
Yeah,
Fine.
air traffic controller.
Yeah. So and there's more to come on this. And you guys there's a million different predictions here, but the overall one that's safe to say is like everything you do on a screen probably can be done without you, or it will be very shortly. So then what would you do with that extra time? Hopefully talk to more people and sign them up. So this is the one to Juan, to kind of answer your question, right? At the end of the day, the consumer wins and we don't get a vote. And this is where so much of our predictions in real estate, like, oh, a consumer will never, the consumer will always want their real estate agent. I don't know. I don't think that's true. I think the consumer will always want to make a good decision, to be well informed, to have good choices, and to pay a price they feel is fair. And we put a construct in place of like an agent will help you do that. But if somebody else can make a compelling case that something else can help them do that more, the consumer is going to choose them. Like that we have to agree with. So we have to constantly put ourselves in front. So Juan, to kind of your point is like if some other company tries to say like, hey, this is the way to market your home or buy your home, like I've got to convince the consumer like, no, there's a better way, and here's the way. And like at the end of the day, the consumer, and if they're tell a more compelling story, or technology does, or the discounter does, they're going to win, right? So the important thing for us, I think, is recognize like Gen Z's coming in and they're starting to buy homes. They do things differently. Like they actually look on social media for shopping. Like they don't necessarily go straight to an agent. Um, so how do I know who I'm dealing with, and how do I always keep myself in front of like what the consumer really wants and stay out of denial on that?
Yeah. This is one of those things too where you have to like slow down to win a lot of times too and really audit it. And I'll go back to that Friday listing appointment that I went on with my client. We just started Google like I'm like, why do you need me? And he's like, he's on top of his shit. I said, okay, cool. So I started Googling him. He's sweet C-suite. He's chief of strategy. I'm learning how this guy wants to consume information. And that's one of those things that like I feel like people agents are truly just going through the motions right now versus doing everything they absolutely can to increase their chance of winning, which is increasing the consumer experience through this. And
Yes.
that's it. That's exactly that. I mean, I would say personally,
Like
like
who was, sorry to interrupt, Brett, but like what you're saying is like this, like, this chart had another column and it had old names in here, right? Travel agents, taxi cabs, Blockbuster, right? And so it's like, are we acting that way or are we acting this way? These people woke up and said like, okay, what does the consumer really want? They didn't wake up and say like, how do I put travel agents out of business? They woke up and said like, what do we want? We want to be able to book a travel and know that we got the right price and see what other price comparisons are and make choices. Okay, like we can give people that. So if we woke up and said, like, what do people want? They want to buy it, they want good selection, they want to know a good price, they want to know more about the area, they want to make sure it fits. And like, I can give them that, right? How do I give them that? All right, sorry, Brett.
no, and I was just going to say to go over to like Juan's question too. I mean, the off market component, great. If they take everything off market, I saw people chattering about sphere of influence and having tight relationships with their clients and whatnot. Then Juan, then you go off market. And Seth said it, I think in his first slide, I want to say it came up where the off market transactions are growing more and more and more. I'll use me as an example. My wife would like to move. We don't want to list our home on the market, but if the right, price came along, we would say, okay, cool. We would consider moving at that number. So like finding who are those potential sellers there and then matchmaking with potential buyers, that's truly the name of the game. And that's something that, folks can't really beat. Also, too, to go back to the luxury component I was talking about earlier, there still are travel agents in the luxury space too, Seth. So it's like
Yes.
that
Yes.
consumer doesn't want to go on Expedia and plan out black car services in between and have
Yeah.
insurance set and all of that
So
stuff
if that
too.
was if that was your bait, right? If you were laser focused on that, you wouldn't worry about this. You would just go deeper and you'd use technology against them,
Yeah.
right? So it kind of goes back to the original thing of like know who you're going after and how you want to differentiate and zero in on that. But find these things like all these shifting sands certainly are bad for somebody, but they don't have to, they're bad for the people who just are lazy necessarily and kind of like ride the wave of the market. They're really good for everybody that's paying attention
Yeah.
and can zero in.
Yeah, Seth and Brian, thank you so. I mean, we're up against it. We could literally, I could sit on here for hours, guys. How do people get in touch with you guys, Brett, Seth? How do we get people in touch with you?
I know you guys dropped my Instagram link up above.
We
So
probably did.
yeah, I
Yeah. Oh,
saw
there we
that.
go. There, follow Seth. I see. Um, yeah, guys, this was awesome. Raquel, any last thoughts? I know we need to kind of talk about what's going on next week.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is good. I didn't mean it to be all like doom and gloom, but I always believe that when you have insight like this, that there's opportunity in everything for your business, right? Where is
100%.
that hidden opportunity? Now that we know on like even just seeing it on a slide, we see it in our emails. We see like what's happening on Instagram with like some of these mergers, but like seeing it all on one like slide made me go, okay, how do we need to build our businesses today, knowing that there's capital, there's tech, there's, and it made me think, and I was having some people are sending me DMs, like, would you go into the luxury market? And like what Brett said, it's like, if you've got to chase somebody through credit repair today and there's fewer transactions, we just get smarter about the type of transactions and clients we want to serve in this
Yeah.
industry.
Well, and the reality is, guys, the only change we can control, period, is the change in us. That's it.
Yep.
We can't control the change in the market. We can't control the change in conditions. We can't control the change in technology. The only change I can control is the change in me. Next week is a little bit different, guys. Next week, we'll pop in the chat. We are during the exact same time period as RocketFuel, we're going to do CreatorCon, which is a little bit more focused on content creation. It goes a little bit longer. CreatorCon next week, we've got some amazing speakers. Seth and Brett, you guys were amazing. Make sure you're registered for CreatorCon. Make sure to invite your friends. It's a free content creation focused webinar we are doing. Chris Smith and some amazing speakers are going to be on there talking about content creation that works for you. There's so much content creation coaching out there trying to turn you into something you are not. This is going to be highly focused on you being you and the best version of you. So that's next week. If you show up for Monday Rocket Fuel, you're going to find out it is actually CreatorCon. So Raquel, thank you so much for putting this together. Those guys, I mean, I could literally just jam session with those guys for hours because they speak my language. I think somebody could say there was some doom and gloom to it, but I don't see it that way. I think it was a recognition of change and a focus on the change we need to have in us to be ready to capitalize on the next, changes in the market.
Yeah,
100%.
thank you all for putting this together. And I would say like the ultimate secret weapon to doing really well through all this is community, and you guys are doing it right here. So if there's one thing I wouldn't do, it would ever be like leaving a community and trying to change myself on my own. But being part of this group is how you stay in front of everything. So thank you all for putting this together.
So good.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. Raquel, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.